So it's my favorite time of every 4 years when the soccer gods shine down and bust a big fat load of soccer. And yes, there was a better way of saying that. But what makes this load even nuttier than ever before is fascism. But this isn't just your run-of-the-mill fascism where we wonder if Grant Wall was executed by a foreign government because governments don't have very good human rights policies. What I'm talking about is fans from 48 nations traveling to a place where they're not even sure whether they'll be let in or not. Or they'll be let in and kicked out. Or they'll be met with hostility at some point on their trip. Which might actually be run-of-the-mill fascism, to be fair. Yeah, it is. Or if the U.S. men's national team starts 60-year-old Tim Ream, ICE will raid the field and attack the opposing team when the United States is losing. Or how about the fact that the United States is unjustifiably at war with one of the participating nations itself, constantly causing its own problems and constantly working against its own people. And Iran, also at war with Iran, so technically at war with two participating nations, and practically a trade war with every other country. So 48 nations that the host nation is at war with. And we have no clue yet whether Iran is even set to participate in the tournament, because again, they might not be let in. So much for that FIFA Peace Prize. I'd love to get a piece of peace as a prize. Prize me that piece. Hey, shawty, let me get a piece of that peace prize. Let me get some of that. So Team Iran is currently without visa assurances. So not only do we not even know the status of one of the participating teams when the tournament is literally happening this month, but if I'm being honest, we also don't know what kind of racism, bigotry, and xenophobia we will see unleashed by this country during the tournament, because of you know who. Which raises the question, if FIFA ever stops being corrupt, should we justifiably ever bar countries from participating in FIFA-sanctioned tournaments? I think it's at least a good question to ask whether we should allow a currently destabilized country to host the World Cup, the greatest and most important tournament in all of sports, and one of the biggest events in humanity. One thing is for certain, it makes a lot of sense that Russia was banned from FIFA-sanctioned tournaments in 2022. However, Israel and the United States have faced no consequences for apartheid and genocide. The United States is the global hegemonic force, though, and in fact so powerful that FIFA won't even touch it. And in fact, Gianni Infantino is such an Ameriboo that he will go out of his way to bootlick the United States and its president. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did more than that. But if you are going to ban Russia from FIFA tournaments, it is utterly appalling that Israel is allowed to compete. Now, they didn't qualify because they suck, but that they are even allowed to compete to qualify for the World Cup, which again, they didn't qualify because they suck. And if you're not going to ban Israel or any future apartheid state, then don't ban Russia. And I am very pro banning Russia, but you have to have some level of transparency here. Ultimately, I hope the vibes are right, like they always are at the World Cup, and that nothing bad happens. And on an optimistic note, it's really nice to see someone like Zoran Mamdani take some political power in the country, who knows and loves the sport.
The most useless information related to this soccer. Every day I wake up, I think about Sebastian Spalash. Oh my god, Pascal Sigan. I think about Marwan Shamak.
I think the more people of influence in this country that care about the sport and care about how much people love it, which in my opinion is a very important thing because A, we're talking about the most popular sport in the world, and B, one of the most popular events in the world, if not the biggest event in the world, not just sporting event. And it really is more important than ever to bring people together in this country and in the current state of socio-political affairs. In the times of fragmented social lives, corporate burnout, and using an app for everything. The World Cup is a beautiful thing and a beautiful time to bring people together. Watch parties, pickup games, tailgating. Oh, no, they banned tailgating, I guess, because that's something you ban. Of course they did. But we're not talking about fascism. That's not what this video is about. We're trying to keep this apolitical, no politics. I mean, it's not like everything is inherently political or something. It's not like late-stage capitalism and America's acceleration of it has anything to do with ticket prices being astronomical and this being the most expensive World Cup to date. But obviously, as a longtime football fan, the other thing that really interests me about this tournament is the football, but also that the United States arguably has the most talent that it ever has. Maybe. So there are more American players in top leagues than ever before, and that is warranted. A lot of these players pass the eye test. They're very good. But just like the quality of everything else in late-stage capitalism, you could make an argument for football not being what it used to be. It's not nostalgia. 2000s England, Spain, Brazil, or Italy far surpasses any of those teams today. Italy can't even qualify anymore. But is the United States in 2026 actually better than the 2002 team that went to the quarterfinals? And if we're being honest, that 2002 team could have gotten second place. At the time, that team actually had, I believe, 5 Premier League players on it. And if we're being honest, talent-wise, they really could have like 10. But something changed in the perception and the opportunities available to Americans in Europe since then. And if we're being real, a lot of that is the increase in US imperialism, because a lot of these kids have access to European passports now. And if the United States is one of the biggest markets on the planet, of course you're going to start giving opportunities to Americans. And now it doesn't feel like they are so much an underdog pile of sweat, but a low-key contender. Not a real contender, but low-key. From Christian Pulisic to Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, Flo Balogun, or Chris Richards, or Anthony Robinson, these are all some of the top-performing players for their position in top leagues. Whereas before, Dempsey, Donovan, Beasley, Onyewu, all good players, but not statistically performing as one of the best for their position in top leagues in Europe. And with the eye test as well, you can tell there's certainly a lot more quality with these players than most of the previous US men's national team kind of crop. And especially now with being the host nation, or one of the host nations. I also believe Mexico and Canada will certainly benefit from this. Historically speaking, host nations usually outperform their usual standards. I personally always really liked the style as well that the United States brought to these tournaments, whether it's the 2002 tournament and how they could have gotten second place that time, or the 2009 Confed Cup where they actually did get second place, or 2010 and how close they were to the quarters, or 2014 and how close they were to the quarters. They were always really just a grind fest and really difficult to break down and beat. Historically, the US teams have always resembled the Bash Brothers. 11 of them. A lot of fight, and it was always pretty fun to watch. I am American, also Canadian, but since my days of growing up as a football aficionado and player, I have kept up with American players some in my football viewing since. Not out of patriotism. Sometimes cultural moments can be significant politically in what they teach us about ourselves, and whether the US wins this summer or crashes out in the first round, it could teach us a lot in both manners. US soccer, for one, is just a capitalist pay-to-play reward system for white privileged kids. The United States is not on the level of other countries in soccer because it is hyper-capitalist. I played all throughout the state of Florida as a youth player competitively from 2000 to 2011. And this was before MLS academies, so there were no pipelines for players that didn't have like a lot of money, didn't have enough money to go to IMG or go to Europe or go to a different state potentially, or go to a city where there was an MLS team. You can imagine how much talent that system is missing out on. And when I became an adult and began to work in industries, what did I find? The same exact systemic problems of greed and gatekeeping. The system is utterly broken, and every industry is showing the exact same flaws. Other countries' governments subsidize a lot of these problems so that profit does not become a conflict of interest and ruin everything. While the richest country in the world has started subsidizing some things when it comes to soccer and soccer stadiums, it is still well and beyond a pay-to-play system, and a very much flawed little monster of capitalist greed. So will the United States win the World Cup? No, or at least I'm not bold enough for that prediction. Plus, I'm pretty sure our Argentine manager wants to gargle Trump's swollen dead hand. It is kind of surprising though, you would have thought he'd find his soulmate in Javier Milei. And with all of this political turmoil, I have to wonder, do any of these players know anything about what's going on in the world? After all, they seem suspiciously quiet about anything. Do they truly know the country they're representing, the history of it, and what they want to change about it? I mean, I've had this thought about what it's like to play as one of these American players in other countries which are somewhat more progressive on a lot of things. Does politics come up? And what do they say when it comes up? In 2020, in a match against Wales, the US men's national team allied with Black Lives Matter, but have since found themselves doing the Trump dance and showing us how good they can lose. I'll say it, I don't really think the United States deserves to win a World Cup. Not rooting against the players or the team. I will always root for this country improving as well. I will always love what this country has the potential to be. But for all the atrocities that this country continues to enable across the world, that government does not deserve this accolade. They will own it as if they did it. The 34-count racist, pedophile, war criminal is surely to do so. The dementia-brained narcissist already did this last year with the FIFA Club World Cup. So you can only imagine if the United States won a World Cup, he would make it unbearable. He will do it again, like he did last year. And again and again and again. Like the Epstein files. It would be even worse than what he did with the US hockey team. And I hope that when it comes to potentially being political pawns, that this group of athletes is more intelligent than that. I genuinely don't know. But no matter who you're rooting for, or what's going on, you can always guarantee to be entertained in the United States.